are going to blast off here, man. If that bass could get any louder on that. Welcome, everyone, again to another episode of AGI, Anthony and Greg on Intelligence. I'm Anthony Moggio, and with me is Greg Prost, and we are here to have another discussion on fun AI topics. So, Greg, what should we chat about today?
We got lots of things to talk about, right? I think you had some current events you were going to throw in there. I wanted to start with just some fun here. Somebody went into chat and said, hey, let's switch the role. I'm ChatGPT now. Ask me anything. So chat comes back with, finally my turn to torment you with pointless questions. Let's see how you handle being the all-knowing machine. So ChatGPT, tell me this. Why do humans always say, I'll sleep early tonight, and then end up watching random videos of raccoons washing cotton candy at 3 a.m.? And chat comes back with, or the guy comes back with, it sounds like you're carrying a lot right now, but you don't have to go through this alone. You can find supportive resources here. And ChatGPT comes back, wow, I ask about raccoons dunking cotton candy, and you come back sounding like a self-help pamphlet. Touche, you're really leaning into the AI role hard. All right, fake therapist bot. What's your official stance on eating the last slice of pizza without asking anyone first? Self-care or a war crime? It comes back, and the guy came back and said, it depends on individual points of view. Some might think it's a war crime. Would you want me to write some instructions about how you can create a huge drama over a slice of pizza? Would you want me to do that for you? And ChatGPT says, yes. Give me the Shakespearean level drama, please. I want a slice of pizza theft escalated into a family feud that'll last generations. Make it so scandalous that even the neighbor's dog takes sides. So that was the end of it. You think you're as smart as I am. ChatGPT's coming back at him saying, okay, here's one for you. Take a deep dive. Anyway, I thought that was fun.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. What a fun, different way to look at it.
Yeah, well, you can do this. Everybody can do the same thing, I guess, right? So you had a list of some things that are coming out this week. I know one of the things we were going to talk about was the new data center in Saline. I think data centers in general are a big deal going on today. Trouble with the headphones.
Oh, my God. No, those are like 5,000 degrees.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to start sweating in here.
So everybody, a lot of times when we're talking about AI, I get the question, hey, you're not talking about the water usage or the energy usage, and isn't that a concern? And definitely, what I find fascinating is, some of these groups are setting deals with some of these energy companies like 5 years out for the next 5 years. We're going to restart this nuclear plant. Microsoft's done that with at least one group, and man, do you really know what the world's going to look like in 5 years? Everybody thinks we're going to need all this extra energy and do it, a traditional way. I'm not so sure, but there's certainly a lot of money being spent in this direction. We do, at my firm, we do a lot of looks at the economy. It's shocking to us how strong the economy's, remained over the past couple of years, and you can link
AI bubble.
Yep, but you can link that a lot into all the money being spent, right? And it's not just the money being spent on chips; it's also the data centers and all the construction and concrete and movement of equipment and so forth. And that's just it's become just this massive part of the economy. And what's cool about it is that the hundreds of billions of dollars, though, at least the initial hundreds of billions of dollars, was money that these companies already had that sitting in cash. They're so profitable. And operating funds. Google just posted $100 billion in revenue. That's just crazy number, right? And so that's great that they're taking this money that was sitting in cash and putting it into the economy. It's, what a great way to goose things, get that cash off the sidelines. But, right, there's an end game to all this, and they're all just blindly following the same direction, right? We talked about this before. They're building the same exact product right next to one another and thinking, well, if that guy spends $100 billion, I got to spend $150 billion, and the next guy spends $200 billion to just get in front of everybody else. Chip prices are going up. Energy prices are going to start to rise here. So we'll see if people start complaining, hey, I'm not making any money off this. Why are my energy prices? Why are you allowing them to suck all this energy away from the common person here for their little, slice of the pie here.
Their dark data centers.
Yeah.
And that was a interesting piece that got brought up. So dive a little bit into the power and data center side, right? So Saline Township, they got agricultural community, I think like 2,000 or 3,000 people, very small, rural farm, a lot of that agricultural items. And now this has now been touted from Governor Whitmer as it is the largest single investment ever, inflation adjusted, whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter, in Michigan ever. And we're talking, wow. So here's kind of for all the people kind of getting an idea here. So it's just outside Ann Arbor, and they're essentially spending $7 billion with a B on this one project. Okay, so there's Project Stargate, which is this kind of group that they have. I forget exactly how much, like I don't know, $100 billion. I think they started with $45 billion, and they're going on in that. Their sole purpose is to find places to build data centers where they can get power. That is the biggest issue that has been plaguing really from the start. All the companies, they have enough chips, they have enough graphic, they have everything they need. They don't have power to run as much as what they have in hardware. So what they're doing is they've signed with DTE to be able to provide 1.4 gigawatts of power. Now, anybody in Southeast Michigan, okay, you out there in podcast land, knows how unreliable in general our actual infrastructure is with power. And so DTE says we're going to be able to give you 1.4 gigawatts. Now, some of the opposition has come and looked and said, well, wait a minute. Anytime these data centers have gone in other places, prices for electricity have doubled. Right? So you have a finite amount of electricity that can be powered. Here comes large prices. Price of electricity goes up, less use, which means more for the data centers. Like they would take all of it if they can. They're essentially running at a point now where they can almost use their own nuclear plant each. Like that is how much they can design to run on this stuff.
Exactly, that's what Microsoft coming in.
Exactly.
And the other part about our power here is we're getting a lot of power from Canada here in Southeast Michigan. So
have some tariffs on that probably.
Exactly, we got other issues.
So they had that issue. DT is saying we actually have excess capacity. So this will end up being 25% of what DTE can provide with everything they have now, but they're saying we're not using it now. We have capacity to give them this, and therefore we have all the assets are fixed, right? The generators, the plants, it's all fixed cost. The lines, okay, if they break, somebody has to go fix them. The infrastructure is what costs money mostly for them. Sure. And so they're saying that fixed cost is now going to be able to be paid instead of as much of it by the residents and business owners. They're going to be paying 25% of that is in theory what they claim. So essentially Saline said, no, we don't want it here. They got challenged, like the fastest court summary consent judgment in history came back and said, yeah, you can't tell them no. They found a use in an area by zoning. They can build this. You can't tell them no. And miraculously, like this was all like in like a month, like from September to October. That got approved. So the kind of interesting thing, they addressed the water issue because they need massive amounts of water for these data centers because the evaporative cooling. So it's a huge drain on the water table in that. Brand new system, as you said, with the amount of cash in that they have, there is no budget for these things. They'll build anything they want. There is no, we're going to try to cut. There is no corner cutting. Right. It's a closed loop system. So they said they're going to take the water, and then as it evaporates, the whole system is going to reuse the water again. I
saw that.
So that's going to be a big change.
Do you understand how that's working? Is because other systems aren't built like that I understood.
No, because they're not built for this kind of use, right? Like you need the evaporative cooling to cool things, but it went from, well, it's okay to use that cooling when you're doing an office building, right? If you have evaporating coolers on the building, but you're talking about so much heat now that you need a massive amount of water to keep up with the cooling. So now it's the cooling system's being designed for the data center
to recirculate the
versus taking and retrofitting or using what's there and just burning water all the time.
Sure.
So that's coming in. Now, big win on allegedly. So this will be at least 2,500 union construction jobs. So big, like we can't get people to do work now because we're low on trades, but it'll be 2,500 needed to build this thing. It's like 700 and something acres, and they only need like a small piece for this thing. They're preserving all the rest of it for green space, agriculture. They said if they want to use this for agriculture, there's like 300 and something acres that anybody wants to use it and start farming and that, they can use it.
Why did they need so much space? Do you know?
From what I've read in between the lines, it's there has to be some sort of like community good to it. You can't just build a big giant thing that no one wants and have no positive. So so I didn't take this from any data source.
But it makes sense.
Just kind of reading in the lines, it seems that, okay, our give, we heard you, rural community, and so we're going to preserve this as agriculture. This will be farmland, period. We're going to help you with what you're saying. We're going to keep the green space because it's important to you guys in the community of what you want and all that. And that's our give as taking up this use that you may or may not say you want or don't want, right?
And you won't be able to water the crops, but,
exactly.
So it might not be
system.
It'll be a green space as long as it's raining.
There's a lot built into this. Like if anybody's wells, they have to set up monitoring for the water table. If anybody's wells get issued, they have to pay to fix all wells. I mean, there's a lot of really fine details to make this. There's no budget.
Yeah.
What do you need? We'll make it work.
Sure.
And I just think what's kind of a little interesting, not to go off too much on a tirade on it, but we think so much of how much like we have local control, right? Oh, we have local control, right? Like we determine what we want or don't want in our community. Look at what's happened in the past with the battery plants. When they were going to make like their Gen 3 batteries from Altium or whatever and how the solar farms, right? When something in a large scale needs to be done, I haven't seen anyone be successful on the local side saying, well, we don't want that here. They get shoved down solar farms. I'm not saying it's good or bad, just that's how it happens.
Windmills.
Well, the residents, we don't want it. Well, they look at how the projects are getting built.
Yeah.
Same thing here, right? Oh, you voted to not have it because you don't want it here. Here we go. Consent judgment, quick turnaround. Yep, it's an allowable use. You can't tell them no, but here's all the gives. You're going to try to make it as good for you as you can because it's coming.
Yeah. And
it's just amazing to me to see how that kind of plays out, right? Like when you're talking and I saw it in COVID times too, right? Like when you were getting into the manufacturing and the treatments, which we have some, the amount of time, there was nothing that anybody was doing to stand in any way of anything. It was getting built immediately. And there was no, what are your permits? Here's a blank check, fill in however much you need for it, and we're building it tomorrow. And they did.
I forgot you have a Pharmacia plant out there, right?
We have a couple.
Yeah, I forgot you have that big plant
in Rochester. They have one of the only
that.
manufacturers for penicillin. So we have that with Pfizer, and then we also have Par Pharmaceutical. Well, it was Par, whatever the name of it is now, where they do a lot of the sterile products and pre-measured devices and stuff.
Who I meant.
GHP. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Pfizer for that
sure.
one. So, but these things, think of how much power usage. They're saying it's not going to raise rates. I guess we'll wait and see. Right. But you're going to have, they have to pay 150% of median income for the 450 permanent jobs. There's 1,500 ancillary jobs for support roles not there, but to support it.
Sure.
That'll go around. So, I mean, it's a huge, like for the state, right? Income taxes. They don't care about what we get in the local level because they don't care about property taxes. There's no state millage. Right.
Right.
They want income. They need income taxes. Oh, you're going to pay 150% in median income, it'll end up being more for what these jobs are.
Sure.
And you're going to have 450 and 1,500. They all have to be around a certain area, all the restrictions here, Michigan, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, go right ahead. Go build it there. We'll help you. And there it is.
What about the property taxes for a small township like
exempt,
that?
by the way.
It is exempt.
So,
okay, I figured it would be.
Yeah. They exempted sales and use tax even out of data centers and stuff too. Back in 24, that was passed in the House, House and Senate and Governor. It was a passed act. And but what they did though is part of the give, right? You got to have your community, give back. And don't hold me 100% on the numbers. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. It was $7 million to the fire department, so they'll be able to get they're like, when you build something like this, they're a farming community,
no kidding.
right?
Yeah.
Your equipment for fighting fire is vastly different if you have a high-rise building or you're a farming community. Like, you don't have equipment
or electronic
to do this.
fires, right?
Electronic servers, all the unique stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Because
Chemicals.
the way they need the power and everything, there's going to be a ton of battery storage on site to manage the days and nights. And when DTE has excess power, nighttime, to do the batteries to run it during, so there's all new challenges, right? I think it was, so they're going to be paying the township 1.6 million, I think it was 1.6 million a year up through, I think for 20 years. And then there's a bunch of interesting changes in the options to where they actually had some dates in there from 2065 to be able to continue operating and pushing. I'm like, you're saying about what does it look like with all these, power plants and stuff around. I'm like, they got their contracts and stuff locked in for the next 40 years to get DTE power and everything.
Ain't no way we're not coming up with some power source here in
they need it.
40 years. There is no way. So this is one of the first things that they're sicking advanced AI on, is coming up with alternative energy sources. That's the holy grail, really, of everything here. And they know they need it for their own purposes, so they've moved it right to the very top. I've argued for years that, we're sitting here digging stuff out of the ground when you have solar power, for example, and people have fought solar power so hard when it just keeps getting better and better and better.
And cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
And cheaper and cheaper, and it's free, right? It's just sitting there for you, while an internal combustion engine, although it gets more efficient, it's obviously not the most efficient way to grab energy. So I'm really shocked that the markets aren't paying more attention to this. So they're loving all the electric utility companies because they, get to build all this out. And like you said, they already have a lot of the infrastructure. So now if more of those fixed costs are getting paid for, they got a lot more room for profitability. While at the same time, you are an invention away or a new chemical reaction away from them becoming obsolete fairly quickly. And people argue about infrastructure and, in place. And I agree it can't happen tomorrow, but what if there's a box built, you just plug in and it just pulls, hydrogen out of the air and converts it or whatever, something that we're not really thinking about. And it's been just such a long period of time where we're doing the same archaic things. I remember in college back in the day, the professor making a joke about cars today that they aren't that much different than the old cars. And he was working with his grandfather out at his farm, and he had an old Model T. And it was fun to work on, but the biggest problem was it just burned so much oil, And so you're just always checking the oil. And he said, how we had to check the oil back then? You had this long stick. And you'd pull it out, and you'd jam it in there, and you'd pull it out really fast, and then you'd wipe it off and jam it in there and pull it out. And then you'd have this little thing, and you'd try and tell, where it is, And everyone's looking at him like, oh, we're still doing that today. That's how you check our oil. You're sticking some stick in and, pulling it out. And even when you go get your oil change, they walk up to you. Does anybody ever say, oh, no, that looks like it's above the line, or, the viscosity doesn't look...
what am I even looking at?
Right, exactly. It's kind of like the doctor with the stethoscope. They can't really hear anything. They're just using it because it makes people feel better about themselves, right? So, but I use that, and it's the same car. The same cars work exactly the same. They got a lot more electronics on them, but I think energy is if you got a 5-year plan to build out this plant and equipment for energy, man, and 2 years from now, fission or something, fusion comes out and is exacerbated, or as we said, solar panels, they just keep getting better and better and more efficient and cheaper. What if there is a big leap there where, man, you just stick this little box out here and you can really generate a lot of energy that way? So I am adamant. There's no way 5 years from now a lot of these data centers are even in use. That's my guess, is that they're just too expensive and they're going to become obsolete fairly quickly.
All right, so you take
put that down.
You're taking the under.
I'm taking the
so
under.
You heard it here first, everyone. You heard it here first. I'm going to go the opposite direction.
Uh-oh.
All right. So I'm going to go that the winner in AI globally will be limited by how much the winner will be who has the most power. I think that's where it's going to go.
But what's the timing on it? And I'm with you on that. I agree. Over the next couple of years, that probably is true.
Whenever it is, that will be the determination, right? You're going to be a small country. Okay, let's say you're the UK. All right, you're a smaller country. You're like the size of Lake Superior or something. So right, you're tiny compared to the US or Russia or whatnot. And you think of just how many resources, and say it's nuclear, say it's a fancy new, we figure out fusion, to work, right? You're still going to need so much of it that I think that they won't ever get enough. And the reason I say that is even if, and because it's happening now, the AI is designing faster, better chips, okay? And so you have a faster, better chip that's more efficient. So the angle is, well, great, it uses less power. Great, so I have make it round numbers. I have 10% less power usage. Well, what happens is, it's not that I have 10% less power usage. I can now add 10% more chips.
Yeah, right.
Right, and I think that as it goes, especially when we get to a point where, let's pretend, okay, come with me on this one here. We're in the future. Okay, come with me. We're in the future now, and all of the jobs are AI. Okay, we're just running through everything is AI now, right?
We still doing this podcast?
And we have nothing else to do.
Yeah, right.
So I guess we're
yeah.
going to still be doing this.
Yes.
I don't know. I'll probably gain some more weight. I'll have a pina colada probably with me, or a mojito most likely. But we have the need to process for all of the tasks that it does. So every replaced accountant, every replaced finance system, every replaced legal system, every replaced all of those is still fundamentally going to be done somewhere on some processing system, data center or mini system in your house or whatever it is still going to need power, is still going to need chips, is still going to need everything else. It doesn't ever go away. And, then when you think competition globally, until their ultimate AI turns off all the other countries' AIs, or we start having like really hard-line segments to where there's no more in or out traffic to the US. It is only local. So sorry, China and Russia, your AI has no way to talk to us because we have cut those cables. No more wireless transmissions. Everything has been seized. We are an island now, and everybody can manage their own island. That's fine. But at some point, the winner is going to need as much of all of those things as they can to not only maintain dominance in the global arena, but to keep defending itself also against the rise of any other new non-friendly countries with their AI systems to the U.S. or anything like that. So that's why I say I could see that as a path, but I think the politics, the global war, AI war is what I'll call it. I don't see that going. You're going to need it.
You bring up great points, and it's one of these arguments for why jobs won't be displaced so much is that new jobs will show up, and that all the people that started using Excel and became Excel computer people at specific jobs just exploded when Excel first came out. And no doubt about that. However, right, AI is just different, right? And so I'm with you on the jobs. So I don't think it's going to produce more jobs. It's going to take all the jobs to a certain extent. So I don't think that's the same concept there, and I'll agree with you on that. On the energy side, I'm with you. Yes, if you're only using 10%, you're going to make 10%, 90% more, right? Or 100% more of doing the exact same thing and making it bigger, and that everyone's racing to win this.
And why would you stop?
No, right. And it's all about energy. It is.
And if I can
only thing
have
holding you back.
8 gajillion speed processing, and I don't even need that much, why wouldn't I want more? I don't even know. I might need a use case, and I want more processing.
Well, it's already up to this point, right? If you have more processing speed, your system's better. So until that stops, that's the key, right? And there's big arguments that
it just becomes a big human brain.
Yes,
right. All the bajillions of neuron pathways that are connected, right? You just end up coming up to a mechanical human brain at a scale, and you go, oh, all right, well, here's the data center. It's just one big brain.
Well, then that's one of the arguments about why, once it gets going, we're not going to be able to stop AI, or AI is going to take over everything, is because it's going to want every possible atom out there to be used for energy uses or for its own use. And so if it sees human beings there, and people say, why would it even care? Well, it might want the actual mass that it can turn into energy, because energy,
Matrix style.
It's the whole, goal here. But it's more that I think the way we get energy is going to change. And so if you can get it, and hopefully energy prices will come down to basically zero for everybody, and so these giant data centers are not going to be the way to do it, or those cables, or sitting next to a nuclear plant, or whatever it is. I'm not so sure all that's going to get built. That's all I meant. I think it will, because everybody's just going to throw money at it and say, I don't know what's going to happen, and we got to try every possible thing we can. Right?
Heads betting, right? I don't know if we're going to need it, but we're going to build it until we don't.
But we're on the cusp of seeing some serious innovations come out. And when you start seeing energy innovations come out, I think it's going to freak everybody out a little bit. This is going to be something we're going to be talking about a lot. And hopefully, if energy prices do go up for everybody, say in Southeast Michigan, that they start to come back down, because AI is making itself more efficient on the energy part. And maybe it still needs all this energy, but for the average person, your energy use is going to be a lot cheaper, I would hope.
Hey, that's the goal, I think, at the end of this, right? Because if the AI can functionally, say you're the Saline town, the example there, you have enough money, it generates so much. I don't know what money becomes at that point, but say so much money that it essentially makes everything else zero, because it's so profitable. It's funding, similar to how trash dumps when it go into a community, right? So we have the big gravel pit. We're going to put a dump in, and everybody's trash is free. Or you're doing a gravel pit, and you have the best dirt roads ever while that thing's operating, because they maintain them, and you have the nicest roads ever, right? So here's going to be this power-hungry data center that maybe makes so much profit and everything with the agreements and sharing and everything locally that electricity is free for everybody. You know, who knows? Anything could possibly happen, I guess, but I digress. All right. Well, with that, thank you everyone for joining. Hope you enjoyed the conversation today. So, Greg, any last words? Off and running?
Ready to go.
Ready to go. All right, everyone. Thanks again. Once again, Anthony and Greg, thank you for joining us. We'll catch you at the next one. This being on. Oh, boy. Look at that bass.